Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are really getting into something essential, a framework that, honestly, has shifted how millions think about getting better. We're diving deep into Chapter 1 of Atomic Habits. And look, if you've ever felt like you're grinding away, putting in all this effort, but just, like, seeing zero actual progress for weeks, maybe months,
Yep.
well, this is for you, which is pretty much everyone, right? Our mission here is to pull out that core philosophy. Why do tiny changes actually work? And maybe more importantly, why do we get so frustrated and often quit just before things click?
Yeah, it's that foundational chapter, and it really flips the script, you know?
Yeah.
Most people are chasing some huge dramatic result, but this book argues the real power is locked inside these, well, he calls them atomic units.
Atomic meaning small.
Small, yes, extremely small, but also, and this is key, like the source of immense stored energy. So we're kind of hunting for those tiny shifts that unlock this disproportionate power over time. It's about the mindset shift, really.
Okay, let's unpack that. A good place to start is probably the story that grounds it all.
Right.
Right, the author's own experience. Because this whole system, it didn't start with some grand ambition.
No, not at all.
It started with trauma, with having to relearn how to just function.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so relatable, I think. Back in 2002, high school baseball practice, just a horrific accident. A bat hits him in the face,
Yeah.
fractured eye socket, serious brain swelling. He ended up in a medically induced coma.
The details are pretty stark. I mean, when they were assessing him, he was so out of it, he thought it was 1998.
Right, and that Bill Clinton was president. It shows the level of disorientation.
And for 8 months, his recovery wasn't about, getting back to peak athletic performance. It was basic stuff.
Yeah.
Learning to walk in a straight line during physical therapy.
And that's the crucial insight, isn't it? The system, his method of improving, it started with these painful, tiny, incremental steps, just regaining motor control. The goal wasn't like excellence. It was just functioning and getting back to baseline.
And then, the punchline, sort of, a year later, after all that rehab, all that effort, what happens?
Humiliation, basically. He gets cut from the varsity team. The only junior sent down to JV.
He talks about sitting in his car, just crying, all that work, and the immediate result is rejection, failure.
And that moment, I think, is the psychological anchor for the whole book. It crystallizes the problem we all face. You put in the work, you try hard, but the results don't show up right away. Or sometimes they're even negative.
Wow.
The success he had later, bulking up, becoming an all-conference player in college, that only happened because he learned to trust a system, small, consistent habits, even when he couldn't see the payoff. Or when the payoff seemed actively bad, like getting cut.
Do you need some framework that keeps you going during those periods where progress just feels invisible?
Exactly. Invisible progress.
Yeah. Okay, so that invisible progress, it has to rely on something concrete. The book talks a lot about the math of small improvements, the 1% change.
Yeah.
Is that just, a nice motivational saying, or is there actual math behind how tiny shifts lead to massive results?
Oh, it's definitely the math. That's why the compounding idea is so central. It's just really hard for us to intuitively grasp how powerful 1% actually is day to day.
Because it feels like nothing.
It feels insignificant, which is why he uses that flight analogy.
Ah, right. The plane flying from LA to New York.
Exactly. Imagine you're on that flight. The pilot adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south right after takeoff. Tiny adjustment.
You wouldn't even notice it in your seat.
Probably not, barely perceptible, but stretched out over the entire country.
You don't land in New York. You end up somewhere completely different.
Hundreds of miles off course. Maybe Washington, D.C. That tiny, almost invisible shift in direction results in a massive change in destination. That's compounding for habits. They steer your trajectory.
What's kind of sobering, though, is that it cuts both ways. He calls habits a double-edged sword. We love thinking about the positive compounding.
Right.
But the negative 1% shifts, the tiny bad habits, they compound just as powerfully downwards.
Absolutely. Good habits make time work for you. Bad habits turn time into your enemy. Missing one workout, making one bad food choice. Easy to dismiss, it's just once.
We all do it.
Yeah, but repeat that 1% error day after day. Those little mistakes, those small excuses you rationalize, they add up. They steer you way off course into, toxic results long term.
But on the flip side, the positive compounding examples are everywhere too. He mentions knowledge, like how reading one book gives you new ways to think about old ideas, like a compound interest on what you know.
Yeah, the Warren Buffett idea. And productivity, too. You automate one small task, it frees up mental energy for something else. That compounds.
Relationships.
Definitely. Being just slightly more thoughtful, a little kinder in each interaction over years, that builds incredibly strong, resilient connections. It's funny, we get compounding when it comes to money,
Right.
but we often don't realize our bad habits are basically compounding debt on our focus or our health or our relationships.
Okay, so let's say we're doing it, we're diligent, we're making those 1% changes,
Hmm.
2 weeks in, maybe even 2 months in,
Mhm.
and still nothing. The scale hasn't budged, the project isn't taking off. That gap, that's where most people bail, right? Why is that?
Ah, yeah, that's where we slam right into what he calls the plateau of latent potential. It's a psychological barrier.
Because we expect progress to be, what, linear? A nice steady climb?
Exactly. We think effort should equal immediate, visible results in a straight line. But reality is different. Results are often delayed. They don't show up until all the work you've put in hits some kind of critical threshold.
Sounds like a fancy term for the valley of disappointment.
It basically is. People get disappointed because the results aren't matching their linear expectations. He uses the ice cube analogy to make this clear.
Right. The ice cube in the cold room.
Yeah. Imagine an ice cube at, say, 25 degrees Fahrenheit. You start warming the room slowly. 26 degrees, 27, 28, 30, 31. What's happening to the ice cube?
Nothing. It's still a block of ice.
Yeah.
All that energy going in, seemingly wasted.
Exactly. And then you hit 32 degrees. That one extra degree looks just like the degrees before it.
Boom. It starts melting instantly.
Right. That breakthrough feels sudden, but it was entirely dependent on all the energy, all the work that was stored up between 25 and 31 degrees.
So the work wasn't wasted.
Not at all.
Oh,
It was just
okay.
accumulating, building the potential needed to change the state. We massively underestimate the value of that stored, invisible work.
Okay, but here's the practical challenge, maybe the skeptical angle. If success, the melting point, could be months or years away, like the book says, that sounds like a recipe for burnout. How on earth do you stay motivated through that deep valley when all you're getting is, like, zero positive feedback? Maybe even negative feedback, like getting cut from the team.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it forces a really important shift. To get through that valley, you have to change your focus.
Away from the outcome.
Completely. If your motivation is tied only to the delayed payoff, you'll quit when it doesn't arrive on your expected schedule. The only way to sustain the effort is to, well, you have to fall in love with the process itself. The daily grind has to become its own reward.
Which leads straight into that core idea of the chapter. Systems over goals. And identity. He's quite provocative here, saying achieving a goal only changes your life for a moment.
It is provocative, but it makes sense. Think about the yo-yo effect with dieting or anything else. You hit the goal weight, then what?
You stop the things that got you there.
Right. Because the system that led to the previous state wasn't changed. You revert. The book argues you need to fix the inputs, the system, and then the outputs, the results, will naturally follow.
He uses that basketball coach example. If the coach just ignored the goal, the championship trophy,
Yeah, just forgot about it entirely.
and only focused obsessively on making daily practice perfect, improving execution, building team culture, would they still get results?
The argument is yes.
I found that voting concept really interesting. It makes it feel more concrete.
It really does. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. It's powerful framing.
So if I choose to, say, meditate for 1 minute, I'm casting a vote for being a calm person.
Exactly. Or if you write one sentence, you cast a vote for being a writer. If you skip the gym, you cast a vote for. Well, being someone who doesn't prioritize that. Identity in this view isn't fixed. It emerges from your habits. It's this continuous microevolution of yourself.
And that also explains why changing can be so hard, right? If we have these ingrained negative labels, I'm bad with money, I'm just not a morning person.
Yes, we build up evidence for that identity, and then there's this internal pressure to stay consistent with that self-image. We might unconsciously resist positive changes because they contradict who we believe we are.
So changing your habits is really about changing your story about yourself.
That's the core of it. Identity changes the North Star. The ultimate takeaway from this chapter isn't just do small things for better results. It's that these atomic habits matter because bit by bit, vote by vote, they fundamentally change your deepest beliefs about who you are.
Wow. Okay, so that puts a huge weight on the small daily stuff, the system. So for us, for you listening, the takeaway seems to be stop chasing the destination quite so hard. Forget staring at New York on the map. Focus instead on that tiny 3.5-degree shift, your system. And trust that compounding effect, even when you're stuck in that valley of disappointment and can't see the results yet.
Because you're always undergoing that microevolution anyway. This just gives you conscious control over it. Once you start focusing on the identity you want to build, the person you're voting to become, suddenly the patience needed for that plateau feels different. The process itself starts to feel like the win.
So the final thought then, if every single action you take today is genuinely a vote for your future self, what identity are you casting votes for right now? Take a second and think about that. Is your daily system, your set of habits, consistently reinforcing the person you truly want to be? Maybe audit your votes today.
Good question to sit with.
Definitely. That's our deep dive for today. We'll see you next time.